Today we're going to find out just how far every special agent can go in BTD5, which are actually exclusive to this game, so it really should be interesting. And in order to do this, we're going to be playing on the longest map in the game, Express Shipping, along with choosing Easy Mode. It's important to note, I also have the Pro version of every special agent unlocked, which gives each of them an additional buff. However, even as a Pro, the Banana Farmer actually cannot deal damage to the balloons at all. Instead, it gains the ability to drop banana peels that send the balloons backwards, which doesn't even work until it's actually collected at least one bunch of bananas. So, our real first special agent is going to be the Ninja Kiwi. Like, literally, the Ninja Kiwi logo is actually a deployable special agent in this game. Now, actually filling the map with special agents is going to be quite a pain, because there is no hotkey to select them, so you have to bring your mouse down to the agent you want, and then of course, you're trying to place them precisely, so you have to completely realign your cursor to place the agent in just the right spot. All in all, it took me over 30 minutes to fill the entire map with Ninja Kiwis, so hopefully I've earned a like and sub for placing them all down without any mods to help make it easier. Now I just want to make sure I point this out. I will be placing one MIB village with enhanced range in the center of the map for every special agent, so none of them fail super early to camo or lead balloons. In all fairness, the Ninja Kiwi gets the ability to pop leads along with faster attacks as a Pro version, but I'm giving the MIB to every agent because the village also gives extra pierce, so I don't want certain agents like this one to be unfairly nerfed by not getting an MIB village. Now of course, you wouldn't expect the early balloons to be any sort of issue for an entire map filled with special agents, and you'd be right. In fact, I actually forgot about this, but the Ninja Kiwis can even send balloons backwards with their kicks. So the first ceramics on round 40 and 43 got trapped by the entrance and were easily destroyed. Of course, Moab class balloons are not affected by this, and the first one is about to come now, and I mean, they didn't do terribly against it, but honestly I was hoping it would get destroyed a lot faster. But to be fair, I guess I should have considered the fact that each Ninja Kiwi is only doing 1 damage with its attack, so I mean this is sort of just like a better version of a 0-0 tower. With that said, they did take out the round 60 BFB without any problems, and round 63, which is normally a good challenge with its 3 waves of densely packed ceramic balloons, ended up just getting trapped at the entrance instead, giving the Ninja Kiwis all the time they need to shred every balloon. It's also pretty fun to watch them actually destroying Moabs and BFBs, as all the resulting ceramics just get blasted back to the entrance by all the knockback kicks they're taking. But I am really wondering how this agent is going to do against the first ZOMG on round 85. Since they're only dealing 1 damage per attack, it's going to take tons of hits just to break the outer layer. However, the ZOMG is so big and slow, getting those hits isn't really too difficult, and now that the Ninja Kiwis have defeated it, we are officially entering the point where true free play begins, which means that each round from here on out will now have a random RBE, although it does start pretty low on round 86, and this RBE is comprised entirely of ceramics, Moabs, BFBs, and ZOMGs, which also come at you randomly. So I'll be giving each agent 3 strikes before it's officially out, that way at least, RNG will play less of a factor. The Ninja Kiwi actually did a really good job at handling the early free play rounds though, and I think it's because despite only doing 1 damage to each balloon it hits, their attacks can pierce through many balloons at once. The Ninja Kiwis are able to hit a bunch of them at the same time. It also doesn't hurt that ceramics aren't getting any chance to escape either, and pretty soon, they had surpassed the round 100 mark. However, the RBE is ramping up quite a good bit at this point, which allows multiple waves of ZOMGs to be spawned in addition to a ton of BFBs. It's important to note that the balloons are also gaining speed and health every round past 85 as well, and on 111, the Ninja Kiwi failed for the first time. But at least they have 2 more tries to get a little bit further. Well, at least that's what I thought, until they actually failed 2 more times to the very same round. So I guess this is where the Ninja Kiwi special agent is officially out. Up next we have the Pterodactyl, which I think I'm saying right because it's supposed to be like a pterodactyl, but this is how it's spelled in comparison. So I don't think you'd pronounce it like raridactyl because when they have made the first A and E, well, regardless though, this agent has a really interesting mechanic where each round, one of the eggs in its nest will hatch a bird, or, well, I guess a Pterodactyl, that can pop a large amount of balloons before having to return to the nest. I couldn't find what the exact number of balloons is on the wiki, but I do know the Pro version allows them to pop a lot more than normal, so that should definitely help them get further. But for some reason, I thought this agent was way bigger than it actually is, so I'm gonna have to buy a lot more of them than I initially realized. Now you might also notice, each nest is emitting these musical notes from a boombox, which is a bit annoying because all the particles get in my way, but more importantly, I'm worried this is going to potentially contribute to lag, especially with all the Ratadactyls flying around as well. Now on round 1, they actually have to leak the first balloons because an egg cannot hatch from each nest until they've gone through a whole round. However, once the Ratadactyls started spawning, it looks absolutely ridiculous, and honestly super trippy, almost like one of those optical illusion videos you'd see on YouTube back in 2010. But yeah, I mean, there isn't much to see here gameplay wise, because all the Ratadactyls are kind of in the way, but for the early game, it's going to destroy every balloon before they can make any progress, which means almost none of the Ratadactyls are getting sent back to their nest yet. Now I was actually kind of worried that they might not be able to attack Moab class balloons, but thankfully, this is not the case, and it wasn't long before the first BFB was also taken down, just like the first Moab, without really even getting to make any progress whatsoever, which also happened to the round 63 ceramics. In fact, not even the ZOMG was enough to really send many of the Ratadactyls back to their nest, so I'm really wondering what they'll actually be able to do in free play. And at first, they were keeping all the balloons really far back because every nest had the maximum of 5 Ratadactyls spawned. However, as the balloons chipped away at them, only one new Ratadactyl was going to spawn on the next round, so basically, it was a matter of the balloons just carving their way down the track bit by bit until round 117, where they finally broke through for the first time. Thankfully though, the Ratadactyl was able to actually survive round 117 on its second try, as it had a low enough RBE for the newly spawned ones to take care of everything. Since there are some Ratadactyls left at the end of the track as well, I thought maybe we could survive another round, but 118 took them out once again, and then they did manage to beat both round 118 and round 119 before ultimately failing to round 120. Now it's time for the Tribal Turtle, which is much more like a traditional tower, as it throws 2 different projectiles in the form of spears and coconuts, the latter of which does extra damage to ceramics. And with the Pro version, you get double the rate of fire, as being a Pro allows the turtle to throw a projectile from each hand at the same time, instead of alternating between them with one hand. This agent is also a lot smaller than it looks, which allows you to fit quite a few more of them than you might really expect, and this includes the ability to actually fit them on the left side of express shipping, which no tower in the game can do. So I think I have over 400 of them in total, which should definitely be a big advantage in of itself. And sure enough, they absolutely shredded through the first Moab, especially compared to the Ninja Kiwi. And the turtles also took down the first BFB with great ease as well. Thanks to their coconut projectile, the round 63 ceramics never really stood a chance either. And eventually, I realized they can fit below the track at the bottom of the map as well, which is another spot that no tower can fit into. So that's even more firepower for the turtle, which was also able to destroy the round 85 ZOMG without breaking a sweat. So I'm really thinking this agent won't disappoint in free play either. And would you look at that? They can also fit above the top of the track, so let me get that filled in as well. I think this might be the first ever green border of a map in BTD as opposed to a black border. And from just how easily the Tribal Turtle is still destroying everything past round 100, I really do believe it has a chance to take the record now. So, I went for a walk while on a call with my boy Subchub and let the turtles keep doing their thing until I got back. And it wasn't long before they were surpassing the record set by both the Ninja Kiwi and the Ratadactyl, and at this point, every round is going to have a really high RBE, along with the speed and health ramping on Moab class balloons getting quite noticeable as well. But the turtles did push through the round 130 mark and even past 140, like right past it, as they ended up failing for the first time on round 141. However, they were able to make it to round 145 on their second try, but unfortunately could not get any further with their third. The Bloonsday Device works by giving you an activated ability, which produces a super powerful beam of energy for a short time, and with enough of them, you can space out your use of each ability to keep multiple beams active at all times. Now this is the biggest special agent in the entire game, so we're not going to be able to fit that many of them, but it will definitely be enough for our purposes at least. Each beam of energy will follow wherever your mouse is positioned, so I'm just going to keep it in the upper left corner and let the balloons get instantly destroyed. You might also notice that each beam is leaving behind this trail of plasma, which also pops the balloons, and that's what the Bloonsday Device gains as a pro agent. And the thing about this particular special agent is that it really doesn't play any games when it comes to popping the balloons. Did you see the first ceramics on round 40? No, you didn't, because they were instantly vaporized, and the first Moab disintegrated, while the first BFB obliterated. And as for the first ZOMG, well, it might as well have been the first ceramics because it got vaporized the same way they did. So, based off its performance so far, you'd really expect the Bloonsday Device to go insanely far, or at least I did, especially because the beam doesn't have to be directly on top of balloons to destroy them, instead dealing damage to a pretty wide area around it. So wide in fact, that it covers the entire upper left corner of track where balloons have to wrap around if you place your mouse towards the center of the square. So, I think this is probably the best spot to keep the beam positioned in order to make it as far as possible. But just how much further that is, I'm not really sure because you can see the rounds are already becoming quite difficult for the Bloonsday Device now. And somehow, some way, they failed on exactly the same round as the Tribal Turtle, round 141. Now, I am going to try following the balloons around the track with the beams and seeing if that ends up being better than leaving it in place, although the first time I tried this, I didn't have any abilities immediately ready, so ceramics ended up escaping. What I had to do then is sell one of the Bloonsday Devices and rebuy it so I would already have one ability ready, which allowed me to get my first beam out quickly enough to then keep the ceramics from leaking. However, I quickly found that the beam follows your mouse way too slowly to actually be effective this way, so I do think leaving it in that spot is indeed the best move. Thus, its failure on round 141 does count as a strike, but these other two fails do not, as I was trying to test something else out. And with the cursor in the upper left corner, they ended up getting to round 143 on their second try, which is also where they ultimately failed after their third. Now it's time for the Meerkat Spy, which normally would be a waste of our time, as all it can do is grant camo detection to towers or other agents within its range. However, as a pro agent, the Meerkat Spy now has a laser attack that, get this, can one-shot any balloon, along with being able to quote-unquote put the hurt on Moab class balloons. But unlike the Tribal Turtle, this agent can't fit on the left or even on the right side of express shipping, as it has a larger hitbox, so I think only around 250 or so are able to fit on the map. And hey, wait a minute, they're definitely not one-shotting the balloons at all. No, the leads and zebras got turned into reds, which means they're actually doing 6 damage per shot, so I don't know why the description acts like they can one-shot regular balloons. I mean, that's what it says. But still, 6 damage is a solid amount, and it was enough to tear through the first Moab, along with the first BFB, and the ceramics on round 63 weren't an issue, but they definitely were making a bit of progress, especially compared to our last few agents. So I don't think the Meerkat is going to be as strong as I was hoping, since it can't actually one-shot the ceramics, but they did take down the round 85 ZOMG quite well, and survived through several free play rounds as well. However, you can probably tell how much more quickly they're already beginning to get overwhelmed, and sure enough, the Meerkat Spy had already failed for the first time on just round 96, the earliest of any special agent that's capable of dealing damage so far. On their second try, they were able to make it another 2 rounds to 98, and thankfully, the Spies did at least break the 100 mark on their third attempt, ultimately failing to round 101. Now, here is where things start to get a little weird. The Bloonberry Bush acts the same way that road items do in this game, meaning you can essentially place an infinite number of them directly on the track, which of course would deal infinite damage per round. So I'm kind of torn on like what to actually do here, because I want to see the true limit of this agent obviously, but I have to stop somewhere as well, and I've settled on placing 1,000 of them. Each bush generates 10 thorns per round and can hold up to 200, with each thorn being worth 1 damage. So, with 1,000 Bloonberry bushes, we can store up to 200,000 damage at a time, and additionally, as a pro agent, each bush is going to create an extra creeper, which I'm assuming is some sort of plant term, every 3 rounds. And each of these creepers is able to store up to 15 extra damage as well. Of course, having thousands of creepers on the track in addition to the main bushes is going to start causing a great deal of lag. Every time 1,000 of them have to be produced at once, a pretty nice lag spike comes along with it, and as more and more were getting added to the track, the game quickly started to run quite poorly, leading to easy mode taking like 3 or 4 times longer than it normally should. And then, it wouldn't even let me click on the free play button, and the game proceeded to crash. When I went back into BTD5 and tried to load the game with all the Bloonsberry bushes in it, it really struggled just to do so, and the game wouldn't even register me clicking the button that starts the next round. So I guess the true limit with this agent is just how much your PC can actually handle. And keep in mind, this game is coded in a way where it can only use 1 core of your CPU, so yeah, it's not ideal. but I'm gonna try 100 of these and see just how well that can do. Eventually, the creepers can end up dealing more damage than the Bloonberry Bush itself because the bush is capped to 200, but I don't think there's actually a limit to how many creepers it can create. At first, the balloons didn't have nearly a high enough RB to actually make any significant progress. However, as we began facing rainbows and ceramics, the balloons were able to destroy all the creepers and use up the thorns of the Bloonsberry bushes in the upper left corner. And after that, they continued carving their way further down the track, at first quite slowly, but as BFBs and huge ceramic rushes began entering the equation, the balloons' progress towards the exit sped up quite a bit. And by round 82, 100 Bloonberry bushes ended up failing. Of course, trying a second time wouldn't help here, as they didn't make it to free play, and for some reason, there's also a weird visual bug where creepers appear to be on the track but aren't actually doing anything. The next special agent we're testing is the Beekeeper, which, true to its name, attacks the balloons by attaching bees to them that I guess are stinging the balloons over and over until they're popped. And thankfully, this damage is actually pretty quick, allowing the bees to easily take care of the early balloons. However, they have a pretty major issue. An MIB village doesn't actually allow the Beekeeper to attack lead balloons, so this tower is going to fail on round— Wait, what just happened? How did they just pop those lead balloons? Oh, I get it now. The MIB doesn't allow the Beekeeper to send bees out at lead balloons, but it gives the actual bees themselves the ability to pop lead balloons still. So at the end of round 45, I'll just use the Bee Swarm activated ability, which the Beekeeper gains as a pro agent, as this allows it to send 100 bees out of the hive at once. However, the bees cannot actually attach to Moab class balloons, but the weird thing is that it looks like they can actually damage them if I swarm all of the bees at once. However, I tried this 3 times, and they could never actually pop the Moab quickly enough to also have time for the ceramic balloons. But if we're being fair, if I had known about the lead balloon thing before, I still would have had 600 lives on round 46, which actually is enough to survive the ceramic balloons leaking, thus allowing the Beekeeper to not fail until the next 2 Moabs come out on round 50. And now it's time to see just what the Angry Squirrel can do. This special agent is quite small. I mean, not like fitting on the left side of express shipping type of small, but they can fit on the right side, and I think I got around 400 of them on the map in total. Now, as a pro agent, each squirrel will temporarily go berserk after throwing 50 acorns, which gives it bigger range and allows it to attack faster. If the Angry Squirrel wasn't a pro, the only way for it to become berserk would actually be to leak lives, which did happen at first because I forgot to put down the MIB village, but thankfully, they only leaked a total of 18 lives, so it doesn't actually really matter. The Angry Squirrels easily took down the first BFB on round 60, especially with all their berserk modes activating, but on round 63, they had a lot more trouble, which tells me their attack must not have very good pierce, and it's just kind of disappointing because that means I already know the squirrel probably isn't going to make it very far in free play. Still though, they handled things well leading up to that point, including the first ZOMG, and the Angry Squirrels were also able to make some progress once they had entered free play, but it was almost identical to that of the Meerkat Spy, with them failing on round 98, and then twice more on 100. Honestly, this is probably my biggest letdown personally, because I thought the Berserk mode was going to make this agent actually really good. But I don't think anyone will be disappointed with the sheer potential of the next special agent, as we're now onto the Super Monkey Storm. Of course, in the early game, it's going to be absolutely overkill, but I don't have any choice other than to use them. If you don't know, the Super Monkey Storm does 500 damage to every single balloon on screen, and as a pro, you actually get a second storm of them after a brief delay as well. For the early game, I would just wait until the balloons stopped coming from the entrance, so that way, one Super Monkey Storm could take them all out. And pretty soon, the rounds were beginning to last long enough where I actually had to use 2 abilities to avoid leaking, but also, something kind of strange happened. The Moabs on round 46 and 50 were one-shotted like I expected, but after round 50, they began leaving behind rainbows. This makes no sense because the Moabs don't begin gaining health until round 86. However, after round 50 on easy mode, ceramic balloons do stop spawning 2 rainbows, instead producing just 1, so I think it's an oversight with that part of the code. Thankfully though, a BFB does get taken down to 4 damaged Moabs by a single storm, which does require 500 damage, so this agent should be working normally otherwise. And even now that we're past round 100, the Super Monkey Storm is obviously not going to struggle at all, because I can always just spam as many of them at a time as I want, so what I'm going to do is set up a defense that can survive for a really long time, and that way, we can test the Super Monkey Storm on something insane like round 400. Well, I ran out of money to upgrade the rest of my Bloonchippers, but I think this will certainly do. Alright, now we're all the way up to round 335, so let's see just how many Super Monkey Storms that it takes just to defeat one round here. And I'm starting with 694 of them just for reference. Look at how fast the ceramics are now without me even having fast forward mode enabled. This is kind of insane. Not to mention, the ZOMGs are taking an insane amount of ability spam, but they are still going down with enough of them, and get this, just to make it through round 335, I had to use 618 of the Super Monkey Storms. So to get to round 1000, I think you'd need several million of these agents. But still, I mean, if you had an endless amount of them and click fast enough, the limit could be almost infinite. And now, it's time for the last special agent of the video, the Portable Lake. But wait, there's still another agent to the right of it, I imagine someone commenting. And you're right, but the Pontoon actually has no way to deal damage at all, even as a pro agent. However, the Portable Lake actually does, as it gains an activated ability which awakens a kraken inside the lake that will strike the balloons and deal 5 damage. And I guess I was wrong when I said the Bloonsday Device is the biggest special agent, because it appears bigger, but the lake actually has an even larger hitbox. Oh, and apparently the kraken only does 1 damage to balloons? I don't even understand why I bother trusting the descriptions in this game anymore. But yeah, the Portable Lake absolutely sucks, because it attacks slow, it only does 1 damage, you have no control over which lake you're activating, so you kind of have to use all the abilities at once, and they don't last very long compared to their cooldown time. So I already lost to regrow zebras on round 31. Yeah, they don't even have enough firepower to stop 2 regrow zebra balloons from becoming a farm. So I restarted the run, and starting on round 26, I would quit out of the game if I was losing lives, load back in, and replace all the lakes so I would have all 16 abilities immediately available again. And then I would try to mitigate the amount of lives I lost. And on round 31, I did manage to get by with only a few weak balloons leaking through, leaving me with nearly 500 lives in total, but as soon as the rounds began lasting a bit longer and had stronger balloons, I just couldn't find a way to win. I tried selling and rebuying some lakes in the middle of the round, but the main problem is I'm not quick enough to be effective while doing that, so I cannot even get past round 39 with them. But I want to see if the Portable Lake is able to attack Moab class balloons, so I'm going to use the Super Monkey to get to round 46. Alright, let's see, and oh, not only can they attack Moabs, but it appears they actually do the proper amount of damage to them as well. So that's just great. I mean, I still want to say the limit of this agent is somewhere before the first Moab, based on how terribly it does against regular balloons, but if you're able to pull something off, please do let me know. I want to give a shout out to MastaPowa, who actually managed to beat round 85 with nothing but Bloonchippers when I had thought that was impossible 2 weeks ago. But now, let's take a look at our leaderboard. Technically speaking, the Super Monkey Storm and the Bloonberry Bush both had the potential to be infinite, but let's be real. The Bloonberry Bush is going to lag out anyone's PC eventually, so I really think the Super Monkey Storm is the true winner of this challenge. Now, as for the measurable towers, the Tribal Turtle made it the furthest with around 145, closely followed by the Bloonsday Device at 143. Then you have a pretty big fall off with the Pterodactyl at 120, the Ninja Kiwi at 111, and then the Meerkat Spy and Angry Squirrel were quite close at around 101 and 100 respectively. Finally, you have the Beekeeper at round 50, the Portable Lake, which is kind of a question mark, but like probably fails by round 40ish I think, and finally, the Pontoon and Banana Farmer both max out at round 10 since they cannot deal damage. And if you enjoyed this video, you might also be interested to know how far every tower can go in BTD5.